Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, CesarRespino. Hello there, welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, CesarRespino, and you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com. Today, I have a special guest. Her name is Andrea Mason. Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well, Cesar. Thank you so much for having me aboard. It's an honor and privilege. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to have you here. And I was going through your bio, so I want to go ahead and introduce you to the people so they can get to know you better. She has over 2 decades of experience in personal development, a major in psychology, BSW in social work, certified in professional organization and entrepreneurship, the creator of the innovative and transformational journey, helping you achieve personal freedom, utilize the healing power of forgiveness called P.L.A.Y, P.L.A.Y. She's your overall accountability coach. Please welcome Andrea Mason. Again, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
An honor and privilege is all mine. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
so definitely. So I always like to start with, the background. I believe that, who we are now really comes down to our upbringing, because as you know, especially being in the psychology major, you know that the things you learn from the age of 0 to 7 or 8, depending on what goes on during those years and the work you do throughout your journey can definitely impact your today, your now. So tell me about your upbringing. Where are you originally from, and how was that for you?
Absolutely. You are hit it right on the nail right on the head, Cesar. The first primitive years of your life is all the way up to age 7. And that really strikes home to me because I was born during the war-torn drug zone era at its prime. And during the cartel in Colombia, South America. My parents had to make the ultimate sacrifice and make a choice to put me up for adoption. And in doing so, they sent me to the promised land, that of America, where I was welcomed with open arms and unconditional love at only 11 months old, weighing in at 11 pounds. Imagine that. That's a pound per month.
Yeah.
And my parents were just fortunate and blessed, healthy and wealthy, and instilled in me unconditional love and unconditional support. And funny you mention at age 7, because that's when my parents had made me aware of this. Age 7, that I was adopted, that they would do everything in my power to share my records, any letters of exchange from my biological parents, and if and ready and willing, when able, to search for them. Now, as a young kid, that is a big pill to swallow.
It is.
I remember looking at the book and like, okay, I was adopted. Wow. Okay. So it was great because I had seen the love in my parents' eyes as being a gift to them of life, a present per se. And that's the best thing you can be, is being in the present and giving your presence to another individual. However, growing up, fast forward into my journey, it was a little difficult. I didn't fit in. I didn't look like my parents. I didn't talk like my parents. And I didn't even know who my parents looked like. So that was an identity thread of the science of psychology behind who I was. I had no identity. The only identity I had was living from day to day and learning my habitual rituals from my parents and instilling the belief that they had instilled in me that, Andrea, no matter what you do what you love and do it best. So to fast forward, that had instilled and empowered me to embrace the journey of social work and psychology, social work to learn the cultural diversities of the world, learning about individuals of all walks of life, which empowered me to work from infantry to geriatric and individuals who had all different conditions. But I majored in psychology to understand the science behind it, why we do what we do, why we don't, how we don't do what we do, and the brain chemical makeup of what nature versus nurturance, your sounds, your surroundings, your false beliefs of those who kind of critiqued you or disciplined you, and how you interpreted them, all about perspective. So I jumped into the social work arena and industry for a few decades, and I learned a lot about myself, how fortunate I was to be here, how fortunate my life was, that somebody's always going to have it better, but somebody's always going to have it worse. And it really made me appreciate what I had. And after doing so, I kind of molded and matured into the holistic and wellness field of things, that Western medication and civilization has kind of put a band-aid on our emotions and put a band-aid on, our adversities. And so when I had done that, I realized that I have a voice, I have a story, I have a message. Everybody has a book in their life that's of grief, sadness, several chapters, if
Right.
not more. And I was able to effectively listen and communicate and empathize with them. And as soon as what happened in the world, it really honed into my focus. It really showed me what was important in life, and that my story can resonate on any level with anybody else. Why? Because I'm of human nature. And that is what empowered me to create the life transformational journey called Press Play. Plan life according to you. Hold the pen
Mm.
to your story and really allow yourself, through your shortcomings, your strengths, your weaknesses. My mentor, Mr. Les Brown, says, you know, vulnerable is a sign of, not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength, heightened awareness and discovery. And as I'm on this journey, I'm learning about new people such as yourself, that we're all interconnected.
Yeah.
We're all an amazing piece of this puzzle that our creator has made. And the underlying thread is, in the end, we're all human. And that's what we have to resonate with.
Yeah. Wow. I gotta love that, and I gotta tell you, definitely, I'm always very intrigued to learning the background of where people came from and who they are now. Because again, as you mentioned, we all have a story. We all have a multiple chapters in our lives,
Yes.
and the things we do in our lives will determine the quality of life that we're gonna have in our future, right? And I can just go back and picture the for those that might be either have gone through something like this and have not been able to get out of that, understanding that somebody at the age of 7 realizing that, hey, here's your true reality. The identity that you were living might not have been 100% the identity you thought it was. Therefore, here's a different identity. Now you have to get
Absolutely.
adjusted to that. And
Absolutely.
realizing that and understanding that, I would say that that must have been or was probably a challenging pill to swallow.
Absolutely.
Beyond that, though, how does somebody really get adjusted to that? As you mentioned, as you're growing older, you see like, well, my parents don't look like me, so and you already know that story. And then there's so many things that come to mind: the bullying, the people talking, all these things that that can get you in a very sad, depressed state of mind, right? Which
Right.
I also want to talk about the psychology of the mind, because I believe that one of the biggest and most important things we have is the power of the mind, and how you utilize that can really make you or break you, right?
Absolutely.
Going through all of those things, how were some of the things that helped you step outside of that and say, I'm sure you went through a lot of those things, or perhaps not, I'm not sure, except how did you deal with those things at that early age? Because there's people that might be 15, 16, 17, 18 that might be listening to this, that might be going something through something similar. How do you step away from that at that age?
At that, I was, Caesar, I was bullied. I was taken advantage and abused by my peers, talk about being shoved into lockers, thrown into garbage cans. I mean, it was, it was a rough time. There
Mm.
was times where I would just go in the bathroom, sit on, stand on the throne eating my lunch, hoping I can either get through lunch without anybody picking on me, and then just my safe haven of my home. But you're right, not everybody has that.
Mhm.
Sometimes their safe haven is school.
Right.
Sometimes their safe haven is work. And in order to kind of, I would say to individuals listening who are going through this, really see in your reflection, what is the root cause? Where are these voices? Where is this self-talk coming from? Is it that of an incident, an occurrence, or an individual who has disrespected you or abused you? And then when you kind of peel away the layers and look at, and this is one of the difficult tools that I encourage individuals to do, is look in the mirror and say, well, you know what? Somebody says that I'm selfish. Is that really true? What do I do that is selfish? And if you have heightened awareness and self-discovery, then confront those individuals in a civil and respectful manner. It's not easy,
Right.
but how did you come to that conclusion? What drew you to think that I am that way? What evidence-based information or experiences have I portrayed for you to, have that label per se? And Cesar, today, with everything that's going on, we have environment that is all likes or dislikes.
Right. Exactly.
And what's blows my mind is you could have 99 likes and you can have one dislike, and we focus on the
And that one.
dislike
Yeah.
rather than embracing those in our corner, those riding sidecar on the journey through the tears, through the fears, through the cheers. We focus on that. And like I said, be courageous enough. I did. I faced my people who didn't agree in me, and I said, well, give me an example. What am I doing wrong? Let me be aware of my shortcomings. So if I feel like they're correct, I need to make an adjustment. And that's becoming vulnerable,
Mm.
being mindful of what people portray of you. And you know what the funny thing is? That's the energy and emulation you give off. That's what you give off. If you don't believe in yourself, you cannot expect anybody else to believe you. You don't have confidence, then you can't expect confidence.
Right.
And my biggest thing too is understanding that when we put expectations on another individual, sweetheart, my friends, you're going to be disappointed every single time. Not everybody thinks like you. Not everybody has your experiences. Not everybody's courageous enough. We're all unique, and that's what makes us united.
Yeah. One thing that you mentioned, and well, a couple of different things. Um, the idea of the like and dislike, and you're right. I've seen it so many times, even now. It's unfortunate. Obviously, technology is great. For sure, it's great. That's how we're able to have this podcast and be able to do different things. At the same time, some people have to kind of going back to the idea of working on that mental mindset, the health of the mind, because sometimes a dislike or a negative comment can really impact your state of being or how you're going to go about your day, and that's pretty sad. It is another form of bullying. People get bullied by that. I forget her last name. It was Lisa. She was doing an interview and on the Inside Quest, and she said, I like myself. When she just realized that she needed to like herself, and she wasn't really paying attention to the likes on social media. Any likes that were coming out on social media, she said, I like myself. Your like was extra because I already like myself. And that really resonated with me, because again, we're looking for that validation. We're looking for that acceptance of even people that we don't know in social media to be able to like us. And so what about you start liking yourself? Like you said, look at yourself in the mirror and like yourself in that sense. So I think that's pretty powerful. The other thing you were talking about, and even with your whole journey, one of the biggest obstacles you had to deal with in your own life was being able to take and deal with the forgiveness, right? And taking that. So I want to talk about that because I think that's so critical. A lot of times we get hung up with the idea of blaming somebody else or doing this or doing that. It was Will Smith that he said, it is not your fault that that person cheated on you. It is not your fault that your parents mistreated you. It was not your fault that you lost your job. It is them for sure your responsibility though to
Right.
take accountability and acknowledge that. And through that, a lot of that comes down to forgiveness. Forgive, not
Absolutely.
necessarily you're not forgiving the other people. Actually, you are. You're forgiving them for you're forgiving yourself for being able to move forward. So let's talk about it for 1 second.
Absolutely. Yes. And, we all today have baggage, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. Every one of our single names today, watching or on the playback, is a therapeutic name on somebody's therapeutic chair for
Right.
some reason. And when we realize that, that it is our nature to blame, and then when we are asked to forgive, then immediately we feel like our pride is destroyed, and we're giving power that it was okay for that individual to hurt us. It was okay for that individual to mistreat us. I love this quote that was written by Lewis B. Smedes. He says, to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that prisoner is you. And I think that's so powerful, because if we don't get past the incident, the individual that has hurt us, and have a takeaway message or lesson learned, that person is going to show up in a different form, in a different stage of life. Let me give you an example. So a coach or a teacher reprimands you for not doing your best, or failing a test, or not winning the game for the team. You hone into that as an individual, that you're the reason for A, B, and C. Now, that person is holding on to a grudge because they're blaming other people. They're not taking an accountability on themselves, that maybe we would have worked a little bit more on tactile skills for the coach, or maybe we could have learned on a little bit understanding material with the teacher. But as a recipient of being blamed, we have to understand it. One, it's a reflection of them and not you, as you had mentioned. But most importantly, that we must release that and take from it, because we're only punishing ourselves. We as humans are the only species that continues repetitive behavior over and over again. How many times do you see a dog try to walk to and from a place? They step their paw into water and they didn't feel comfortable. They walk around it and they keep running around it. It's already instilled in their mind, I'm not going to do that again. But we attract what we feel we don't deserve. If we've gotten bullied, we attract that, and we find it in our bosses, we find it in our spouses, we found it in our friends. And if you have that lack of confidence and awareness that you deserve better, that you don't deserve to be treated that way, and forgive yourself for punishing you years and years, rather than having your past chase you, you face your past. That's the only way you're going to evolve. For me, my examples was, at first 7 years old. Wow, if my mom and dad didn't want me, geez, who is going to want me?
Right.
My own flesh and blood. But as I evolved, I realized they made the ultimate sacrifice. And being a parent, that was the greatest gift and hardest gift they could do. When my mother had passed, my adoptive mother had passed in 2007, I suppressed it. I was angry. I just suppressed it and pushed it to the side. And as you said, it can really damage you. I remember her passing, and I suppressed it. I just went right to the grind because of my personality. Grinded, never really dealt with the situation. Fast forward about, 9 years later, and I didn't really face it. And I'm still angry for multiple reasons. God for taking my mother. How could she leave me? Now I have two mothers that have left you, yada, yada, yada. Your mind can be either a weapon or that of wisdom. And what happened was, I had suppressed stress. So the last time I got into a disagreement with somebody, it took my health. I was going to work one day. I was fine. I was kind of dismissing my emotions. And then I realized I didn't feel quite well. Went over to lean over to get my inhaler because I had exercise-induced asthma at the time as needed. And I was like, this is odd. Fine. Fast forward, I went to the hospital, ended up going there. They ran tests, sent me home, said I was fine. I was ready to come back to work. Set my family off on their ways. I was about to get into the vehicle. Hospital calls, says, we missed something. You need to come to the emergency room immediately. I was confused. I was like, I'm fine. I need to go to school. I need to take care of my life. I have a job and everything. They said, please come in. Doctor sat me down and said, we have found a test that said you have myasthenia gravis. Now, for those of you who don't know, that's a terminal autoimmune disease. Mind you, less than 24 hours, I was fine. I just had a little bit of difficulty breathing. When the doctor told me that, everything shut down. I must have passed out. Ended up in the ICU unit for a week, unable to use my limbs, unable to hold down any food, let alone breathe on my own will. I was on all machines. I remember that our son was very young at the time. My husband would speak to me and visit me, shortly because we had to care for my son. And he said, do you remember The Secret? I said, yes, I remember The Secret very well. We watched it on Netflix. Spoiler alert, there is a medical component in that. I won't ruin it, but there was a medical excerpt. And he said, do you recall that, excerpt? I said, yes. So that night I decided it was my decision. I was going to take my life in my own hands and make something out of it. I'm tired of, not getting what I need. And this was the universe and God's way of saying, if you're not going to slow down, we're going to slow you down. I wasn't able to do any of that for a week. And then the team came in and said, we'd love for you to see if you can walk, and if, tests are still running negative of everything else, we don't know what's going on. I said, okay. Draped my feet over the hospital bed, jumped down due to my petite stature. I ended up walking to the nurse's station and back completely on my own will. Wow. I still remember their jaw drop and just being like, wow, all tests are negative. You are discharged. I was clean slate from previous autoimmune diseases and conditions built on stress. So my message to everyone here, the silent killer of life is stress. If you don't face it, if you don't challenge it and address it, it will take you. And, my list prior to that was exercise-induced fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, osteopenia. I had 7 ulcers on my gallbladder that had to be removed, an appendectomy, upper respiratory. And I just wasn't putting it together. I did not forgive or allow myself to grieve after my mother's passing. I did not forgive God for taking my mother at her lowest point to rest her in peace. I did not forgive the individuals who didn't believe in me. And when your tank gets completely full of all that you can take that wears you down, remember, you have a choice to go left or right. And when you forgive, you achieve personal freedom.
Yeah, I love that, and you talk about, achieving personal success through the healing of power of forgiveness. And it reminds me, again, going back to the idea of you have those ideas, you're forgiving yourself or forgiving everything that's happening, right? Yes. From a mental perspective and from a loving perspective. And it reminds me of this African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that can do you no harm. Yes, and we go back to that idea is that, there's so much power within us that we tend to not pay attention. The things that come to us free at birth, we disregard and we focus on things that might have some sort of monetary value, yet, our time is valuable. Our mind comes in to us for free, and there's so much power within that. Right. And so, having that said, and obviously you have a major in psychology, you have a BSW in social work. You've done a lot of work, for yourself. Right now, what are the things you do to keep you, I guess, on this positive mindset? Do you have any rituals, any habits that you do daily to help you throughout your day?
Yes, and these are key. It's not easy. People are going to jaw drop when I say this, but I've pretty much unplugged from everything. Of course, my industry requires connections and influence with internet connections and social media, but I limit myself on that because I truly believe there's 7 steps throughout evolution.
Mm-hmm.
You have self-awareness and discovery. Then you have your mind over matter because thoughts become things. It happens in twofold. First, it happens here, then it happens in the reality, as Bob
Mm-hmm.
Proctor and the Secrets explain.
Right.
Then you learn to invest in you. And I'm not talking about financial all the time. I'm talking about reaching out, like our connection, like-minded individuals, paying it forward. And what is aligning yourself with your mission, morals, and values. After do that, you then start to learn how to create your own world. You learn about what is in my life that's a benefit and what's at a disadvantage. And distractions are the number one thing in the world that steers us from our personal development. So I don't go on TV. I don't go on the radio. Believe you me, my parents and my in-laws will let me know if something's about to happen. So I've got them to depend upon. But I really invest in what's in my life. And we do that with our family, whatever, we're big avid Disney fans. So every night, depending on the time my husband comes home, we watch Disney vloggers live because that's what we love. It's magical, it's euphoric, and even Walt Disney's story is that of amazing. Several times of failures, but fell forward, and his legacy still lives on generations then end.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do that, you have empowerment. You're able to empower others. You see the light in other individuals. And that's what I love. I love in my line of work that I see, hey, I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to get you here. Where do you want to go? Let's go there. Let me help you. Because I don't believe in lecture. I don't believe in dictating. I believe in listening, learning, and loving. And once I understand you, then we walk the path together. And I'm just the person behind the bicycle seat, holding your seat, keeping you on path. I don't dictate. I don't judge. No excuses, just results. And I widen and sharpen the lens because you got to dream big. You have to, because that's what's going to keep you going. Mr. Les Brown, my mentor, has told me, Andrea, dream big. And who would have thought 9 months later, never being in the public eye, I'm global. I'm on almost every continent, speaking, sharing my message, sharing my story, and learning about individuals. And finally, the most important key is application and mastery. There's books out there, but how many people are applying what they read?
Mm-hmm.
How many people are applying these lessons, these takeaway messages? A lot of them are just like, hey, I read this. Okay, great. Are you being busy or being productive? What is the powerful impact, influence that's going to have you leave a life of legendary and legacy? That's what I want to know. You're here to live,
Mm-hmm.
not to survive. Nobody
Right.
gets out here alive, like Mr.
Right.
Brown says. There's no destination ticket. Oh, okay, June 12th. Cool. No, you're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Right.
So I truly believe of integrity, and I believe in passion and paying it forward. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And definitely, I mean, again, we're here today and we're gone tomorrow. And so we got to be able
Yeah.
to really, I think, look at what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish in our life. Yet at the end of the day, one thing that I notice a lot, that sometimes we tend to live in the past, right? And we have this idea of living in the past. And unfortunately, we have to be able to recognize that that's gone. And so
Yes.
we have to look at it from the perspective of, it is an educational experience. It is
Yes.
something that I can extract some lessons to help me on today, this moment now. And then for sure, plan for the future. Don't live in the future
Right.
though. And I think that's where a
Right.
lot of people
And a
tend
lot
to.
of people are stuck. Oh, well, I'm here. I don't have this degree. I don't have this experience. I don't have this knowledge. Time is all of the essence. You have a limited amount of time. You have the same amount of time I do. It's how you use your time.
Right.
And that's what I think we lose sight of. Well, I failed at this. And if you constantly live in your past is going to repeat itself over and over and over again. My husband says, um, what does he say? Wow, it just went out of my head. My husband says, excuses sound best to those who create them.
Yeah.
Rather than, but what? Be a part of the solution, not the problem, because you're going to find an angle every which way not to do something. What is your obstacle? And what you found that I find the biggest obstacle is yourself. And that's what one of my fears is that I used to be fearful of sharing because media says, oh, being selfless and being confident is kind of, condescending and cocky. And I would say, you know what? I'm not really fearful of failure. I mean, look at my life. Look at before I got here. I was always struggling. I had to work 10 times harder than everybody else. I had to work. My fear was success. And that was, and everybody like, how could you fear success? There's money, there's this. And I said, well, I live from my heart. And I want to make sure I'm abundant with love, abundant with knowledge, abundant with just compassion. And I want to make sure that I have enough for everyone. I'm here to help everyone. I'm not here to be put in a cookie cutter box. Oh, I'm just going to help mental health workers because I've been there. I'm just going to help fellow adoptees because I've been there. I've been going to help people who've been abused and neglected. No, we all have a story. Am I able to give them enough? Am I ever going to be enough? That was the fear of success that I had. And it's a work in progress. But as long as I follow my heart and not the herd, I won't get hurt, no longer get hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely love that. I definitely love that. Let me ask you this: where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Absolutely. So if you're watching or on the playback, grab your phones, hit me up at am.andreamasons@gmail.com and receive your appreciative gift. Type in, you can overcome anything. And I'd be more than happy to connect with you. I greatly appreciate it. I'm all social media handles, andreamasons.com, and I look forward to connecting.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. So definitely you guys need to take advantage of that. She's given a 15-minute complimentary conversation with you. So you guys, consultation conversations, you definitely need to jump on that for sure. Andrea, we talked a lot about, obviously just the journey and all that stuff. And you talked about, your mentor, Les Brown, and I love Les Brown. He's amazing. I myself had multiple mentors throughout my life. And so I want to talk about that for a second, because I think there's a perception, right? And yes. I think that certain people see things differently than others in terms of when it comes down to networking, or it comes down to mentoring or mentors and things of that nature.
Correct.
How critical has that been for you in your journey of success? And I'm not talking about success in terms of monetary value. I'm talking about success in life, in being free and being alive and having the ideas and things of that nature, and having a network of group of people, the connections and or mentors.
Absolutely. That's a great question, because as you're going on the journey, like you said, you have several mentors, whether it be personal mentors, motivational mentors, and so forth. What I feel it really is true when I look at being a leader and have leadership qualities is, as Mr. Brown and all the greats, Tony Robbins and, Greg Platt, Zig Ziglar, Bob Proctor, you name it, they remember where they came from. They remember where they came from. Every great mentor that I have learned something from, it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the exposure. It wasn't about what can I get out of it. It was, take my hand. I've been there. I'm going to share you the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we're going to get to this together. And that's what I've adopted. I've adopted the mindset that my parents also instilled in me. I'm not going to show you the how, because that's for you to decide. That's your life. I cannot walk in your shoes. But I can share stories of the failures and the success. And, you know, like they said, it's, if you're not if you're not taking risks, you're not even trying. And we are creatures that love comfort. It's so easy to be comfortable. But if you want to make an impact, if you want to make your message heard, you got to do the work, because the reward is just immeasurable.
Mhm. Yeah, talking about being, being comfortable or uncomfortable, right? We got to be able to get uncomfortable. Les
Yes.
Brown, one of his quotes, he says, "If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy." And again, that idea there, when you start thinking about it, it is easy for me to come home and lay on the couch. It is easy for me to have the pizza at 11 p.m. or the whatever. It is easy for me to be lazy and not do anything. Yet my life will be hard. It will be hard. It is hard because I've been there. It is hard to come home after 8, 10, 12 hours of work and still work in your business because you're trying to get ahead. It is hard to have a diet or have a healthy meal. All of that is hard, yet your life will be easy down the line. And so a lot of times keep coming back to that idea that, there's so many different things that we can do as people, like this podcast or different audiobooks or books that can help you really start looking at, where do you want to be? What is your ultimate goal? I like what you said earlier today. You shouldn't be here to survive, just to survive in this life. You're here to make a difference. Well, what kind of difference and impact do you want to do, throughout your life? And kind of going back to this, I listened a lot to Les Brown. One of the things that he was talking about, and he talked about it. Imagine you're in your deathbed, and surrounding you are the ghosts of all the ideas that you had, and they're saying, "We're dying with you because you didn't have the courage or you didn't take the risk to bring them out to life."
It gets me every time. My heart, it gets me every time, because I just look at those who've lost their lives, especially now. You don't want to live a life of could have, should have, would have.
Right.
You want to live a life of legacy, love, laughter, living. It's called a life for living. And when you mentioned it, Gary Vee says, you do your 9 to 5, come home, kiss the dog, and you grind. And that's what I've been able to do. Over the past couple of years, I was able, now you believe this, I was able to add 40 hours per month to my life. Why? While having a full-time job? Because I invested in me. I said, okay, it takes 15 minutes. I'm not really doing the work to do laundry, maybe to fold and put away, 10 minutes to do the dishes. And then I save my evenings and weekends for my family, because that's when we are connected. Now, sure, the past couple of years, we had more connection. We were really able to prioritize and really look at ourselves. I feel like 2020 for me was a year of clarity. And I'm so grateful for that, because I was like, wow, I got a lot of stuff I'm good at. And I'm not good at this, but I'm going to study and learn, or find somebody I can connect with who can teach me that. And that's what I just look back at my life and I'm like, it was kind of amazing, because I'm going to share something with you. And I had created this poster. It's all of the greats plus an actual New York City Upper West Side comedian / motivational speaker. This was created in 2015. Right now, I have worked and met with him, and I work with subsidiaries of these gentlemen. So it's possible. And what I was able to do was realize how bad I wanted it. What was my why? What gets me up in the morning? What do I love doing that I don't have to get paid for, but I enjoy doing it? And I was able to increase my time, balance my life, and still develop my own business. 40 hours, that's 10 hours per week. And that's just an hour a day, if you think about it. So it's possible. Anything is possible. My good friend, Nelson, thepositivedrift.com, he has overcome adversity. And he's an amazing individual. And he puts me in check to say, it's not impossible. Remember that you're possible, meaning I'm possible. And that really strikes a chord with me, because my inner circle is so small. Remember, I invest. I be mindful of my language. I be mindful of my headspace and my surroundings. My inner space is probably less than a handful of people, but it's not their dream, and it's okay. But when they criticize, That's going to give me fuel to understand and look at different perspectives of individuals, because we're all different. And I learned how to adapt and effectively communicate and listen to each one.
Yeah, and I like that too, because it's not a popularity contest. It's not
Right.
about how many people you know, or how many people are in your circle. You definitely want to keep that.
Right.
Going back to the idea, Les Brown talks about this, and when you're shooting for your dreams and you're working hard on your dreams,
Mhm.
um, uh, it's the top. You're lonely. It's lonely on the top because the bottom is overcrowded, right?
Right.
You're gonna end up losing people. You're gonna end up losing relationships. You're also gonna be more selective on the people that you are gonna be around, because again, you're going with the same mission, the same vision, the same value system. And again, when you're going for the top, it is lonely on the top, and I know that, and yet at the end of the day, though, is you gotta go back and see, well, what do I want for my life? Where do I want to be?
Right.
And I think that everybody wants greatness. Like, you got to be able to get uncomfortable to be able to make it through this life in many different aspects, right?
Right.
And
And that's
so,
what Mr. Brown says. You
yeah,
don't have to be great to be started. You just have to be started to get great. Only
right,
quality people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely that's amazing from that perspective. Um, for the people that are watching our show, that might be going through a challenge, you've talked a lot about great things now, and dropped so many, very good aspects of ideas. Yet for the people that are going through some challenges right now, and what would be one or two things they can start doing to start overcoming that challenge?
Yes. Obviously, number one, be patient. Be patient. We have lost the ability to be patient because we have been programmed for immediate gratification and instant response.
Mm,
Nothing happens overnight. A tree doesn't grow overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. Those cliches. It's a process, and you got to trust the process. Secondly, follow your heart. It's so difficult. Life is not easy. Like Sylvester Stallone's, it's not all sunshines and rainbows.
mhm.
You're gonna get kicked and knocked down. It's gonna hit you harder than anything you'll ever imagine. But I want you to look at where you are today. Because if you focus, and like Steve Jobs says, and look at the dots connecting to where you are,
Mhm.
those are the obstacles who make who you are. Michael McConaughey says, process of elimination. Find out what you don't want to be, because that'll realize and open up who you want to be. And that's how you align yourself. It's not easy. It's like Caesar says, it's very lonely. Trust me. And I'm an extrovert. So being virtual for this amount of time and only having our son to talk about, I mean, he's just about to go into middle school. It's not easy. It's lonely because nobody wants to work this hard. And everybody's like, "Oh, Andrea, you sit home and you talk to people. Well, how does that work?" I do it because I love it.
Mhm.
I'm not sitting here 8 to 12 hours in a chair behind a screen just for giggles. I'm learning about people. I'm sharpening my craft, and I'm opening. I mean, to talk to individuals in the Middle East, to talk to individuals on platforms in Africa, to talk to people in South America. That's the greatest gift, because you're constantly learning. There are people who are forever students and just invest, invest, invest. Okay. What do you have to show for it if you're not applying? There's
Mhm.
other ways of investment of your time, investment of your knowledge, investment of your love. That's what makes me make these amazing connections, such as Caesar, to have our message. It's not about me, me, me.
Right.
It's about being selfless, being genuine, having integrity, being loving, and being generous. I always pay it forward. If I can't find an answer, if I can't find a resource, I will connect you with somebody who will.
Right.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
So be patient. Know it's lonely, but know your purpose.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. My last two questions for you. Um, there's probably gonna be people wondering. So your biological parents, do you connected with them? What is your relationship with them, or how is that?
So, as far as my biological parents, according to quote unquote documentation, remember it was a long time
Yeah.
ago. So, how reliable it is, I don't know. I mean, I have
Yeah.
two different birthdays, so I don't, we'll see.
Do you
But
celebrate different birthdays?
I have two birthdays. It's all good. But what has happened was through a median. Again, I don't know that this is bad, but through a median, my mother has actually channeled through and came over, and so she's crossed over. As
Okay.
far as my father, according to work documents, left before I was born. And it was pretty much of a matriarch, like my mother and my biological grandmother and my biological mother raised me. But like I said, explosions and bombs and drug cartel. And it wasn't until about a couple of weeks ago I kind of tapped into the science. Now, this is a long time after.
Yeah.
My husband was just like, why are you wincing at a thunderstorm or lightning storm? And it wasn't until that aha moment, that's explosions and bombs. Because I would always go in a fetal position. I'm a mother
Ah,
now,
yeah.
and I'm married for several years. And so, to answer the question, allegedly to records and median, she has passed over. I was told also by the median I have several siblings. I don't know, but my bucket list is to travel to Colombia one of these days and just kind of learn about my homage and my background. I mean, I only know it from stories and videos, but I really want to go home on the land to really understand what it is. And actually, through my journey, I'm able to connect with the Colombian family. We
Yeah.
speak, and it's crazy because I understand it better than I speak it.
Yeah.
But going to the infantry nature of like being, the mindset, I understand. And I was like, wow, I'm really good at Spanish. And I
Yeah.
was there for 11 years, 11 months.
Yeah.
Regardless, I didn't know how to speak. It was still kind of programmed into my subconscious. And they welcomed me, and, I was able to kind of get them to continue to pay tribute to their community because they had lost their son, and they found me on the internet and connected, obviously, respectfully with boundaries and,
Yeah.
all what have you. And they were able to renew and continue contributing to their community. They said because the connection, they kind of allowed me to step in a little bit and provide motivation. Leave a legacy of your son. Yes, you've lost your son. It's tragedy, but you as a family for years were always contributing to the community. Don't let that die. And
Yeah.
it's like, I love Disney, and it's like Coco.
Mm-hmm.
Once you
Yeah.
forget those individuals who have powerful impact, they're either dead figuratively or they're dead, their legacy is gone. And that's going back to Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
Die empty.
Yeah.
Leave a legacy of a life you love, not a life you survived.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely. I love that. I love that. And my last question to finish this up, you talked earlier about you're careful on the way you speak, the words you use. How critical are words? I believe words do matter, right?
Oh my
In different
goodness.
aspects. How critical is that for the unconscious, and really just for yourself?
This was hard for me. I'm gonna be transparent because that's what I am. Was not always like
Yeah.
ethically speaking.
Yeah.
I still have a little Latina street in me, but when I started being mindful of my words, I used to curse, and I used to kind of just dismiss people and cut people off, or just like, whatever, you're done. And when I realized that was my behaviorisms, I wasn't happy. I wasn't positive. My endorphins weren't right. I wasn't getting the energy or the vibration that I had. So I made a conscious decision. Okay, I'm going to be mindful of everything I say. Words can be wisdom or weapons, and they are spells. And I'll test you on this because I remember some years ago, my friend, I love Disney, they gave me a grumpy cup. And I was like, this is awesome. And then I was like, wait a minute, why are you giving me a grumpy cup? Like, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you always have something to critique or complain about, or you never smile. And I was like, well, wow, I don't want this anymore. So I said, out of respect, I put it away. And that's when I realized, wow. And going back to what I said earlier in the show, you are a reflection of what you think. And what you say emulates on other people, and other people's perspective, as Mr. Brown says, doesn't have to define you, but it's what you're emulating. So I'm very careful, even if I'm upset about something, or I'm angry, or I'm really disturbed by what somebody does. I said, you know what? I'm going to agree to disagree what they say, but I'm going to do it in a respectful and civil manner. And if I see something that, oh my gosh, that was stupid. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not saying that. It wasn't stupid. It was lack of knowledge, or you didn't get the message the first time. Because growing up in a home, you think it, like I said, my home was my safe haven. Unconditional love. You got this. We believe in you. All we ask is to do your best. That's all, not perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. Practice makes progression, not perfection. But the outsiders, you're small, you're ugly, you're not qualified, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I ate that all the time, because it's easier to believe that than you're great, because the world messes it up. If you feel great, you're self-absorbed, you're conceited, you think you're a big shot. No, you mentioned this, Cesar. You have to love yourself to be confident, to be grounded, and to be aware. So I am very particular with words. If somebody says, oh man, that guy, and I realized this too, because other people's words would have an influence.
Right.
And it would shock me. And I was just like, yeah, that person's, that movie's stupid, or that person doesn't know what they're talking about. So I adopted that. And then I was like, wait a minute, let me talk to that person. You know what? That's probably what you experienced, but I'm not going to follow what you tell me, because I want to be informed my own self. I want to experience the situation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that. I love that. Well, that was definitely pretty good, Andrea. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this interview with you. Anything else before I let you go?
Not, like I said, it's a difficult world we live in. It's not easy. But when you find the individuals that, complete your pieces to this puzzle of life, you're going to go far. You just have to trust the process, be patient, and most importantly, be kind to yourself. We beat each other up, ourselves up so much. It's really disheartening. It's, like I said, in the social work industry field, I've met people with mental health conditions, of terminal conditions, of heinous crimes. And that's all they knew. They didn't know better. They didn't know right from wrong. But you beat yourself up for these mistakes, and you'll live in a life of depression. Allow yourself to heal. Allow yourself to forgive yourself and say, hey, you know what? Tomorrow's a new day. Yeah. I've accepted it. I've become aware of it. And I'm going to apply the lesson that I've learned.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you being on the show today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor, please make sure you follow her on social media, connect with her. Go ahead and take advantage of that complimentary 15-minute call with her. And do me a favor, make sure you share this message, because somebody needs to hear this message. I will see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Goodbye.
Hi, I'm CesarRespino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform, where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.